Hello, I'm Frances Finn and welcome to another episode of the Notts TV Debate. Your chance to put the world to rights from the comfort of your own sofa, assisted by three Nottinghamshire panellists. So say hello to Francois Loy. He runs Ink Nightclub in Nottingham. Welcome to you. Melita Bryan is a former Labour Lord Mayor of Nottingham. Good to see you, Melita. And John Holmes is with us. He is a veteran Nottinghamshire broadcaster. Welcome all three. We've got lots to go at this episode, and I hope you'll get involved as well. You can always tweet #NottsTVDebate. I want to know whether you think school children should be allowed a week of flexi holiday, it's been called, a week off in term time to be taken when the school approves it, so not everyone's off at the same time. This is the idea of a Nottingham man, Andy Gillen, who says that this will provide teachers and children the opportunities they need to have the right balance of rest at the right cost. And he was saying on Notts TV that perhaps the teachers could set the kids the work that they're missing. They could do it on an iPad, everyone's happy. What do you think, Francois?
Absolutely, well done, Andy. Fantastic for championing this idea. And as a parent of an 11-year-old, half term's coming up, we're going away, and it's three times the cost. It really is expensive to the point that it's not really affordable. And later in the year during the summertime, it's important for families, obviously with low incomes, that they still able to go on holiday, because the summer holidays, it's very expensive and limited availability as well.
John, I know you take a slightly different view on this one.
I think that's rubbish. I really do. I mean, the thing is, what we've got wrong, partly we've got wrong, is because what the school education system is. A lot of people don't feel they're disenfranchised. A lot of people, they want to be engineers, they want to work with their hands, and they've got to learn trigonometry or something. So that's wrong, I agree. But the most important thing in my life was my school. I was very lucky because I was good academically, but I am what I am today because of my teaching, when I went to school. And directly you start taking children out, you're being disruptive to the whole class. I mean, I remember we had the Jewish New Year at my school, and much as I appreciated what they were doing, it was disruptive because we lost a lot of the Jewish people for a few days.
So
and
what
then
you're
they had
saying
to catch
is,
up.
Yeah, but they could catch up, could they not, with
They
an
won't.
iPad?
So take a laptop on holiday, do me a favour. I'm not stupid.
Can you remember every week you went to school? Obviously not. So not every week's important.
The other thing is, all this is about cost. When my children were brought up, we couldn't afford to go abroad, so we didn't. It's as simple as that.
I think things. Excuse me. I think things have changed quite a bit, John, and I agree with you. You know, going on holiday out of term is very expensive for a lot of parents, and you've got to remember that. Now you've got children who come from their parents who come from different countries. And probably a mother or father would like to take the children back to their country. And that's a learning curve in itself. Children get to know about their dual heritage, where the parents are from. So that's a learning curve. They can come back and say, oh, I've been to, I don't know, India. You know, they've never been before. The parents are from India.
They've got 5 or 6 weeks in the school summer holidays. They can do that.
But the summer holidays are so expensive.
But you're not going to do it every year, are you? Just one. Okay, I buy that. That's fine. If you want your family to go to Jamaica, that's great.
Of
and then
course,
you can send a letter to the school and say this is for good reason.
Yes, but children learn and different ways of learning. I find children in school now, they probably don't even learn in school what they've been taught, and probably going on an excursion somewhere. It broadened their horizon, it broadened their thinking.
So, John, you accept that there is educational value sometimes, and that on special occasions.
I think it's overplayed.
But to actually build it in as a week, so this is the question, should we have a week of flexi holiday? What message does it send to the kids?
I think it's good. It manages their time. Also, to take responsibility if they want this time away, that they do have to do extra work.
They won't,
Can we
will
consider? Can we consider for a moment split families?
Yes.
One child from Nottingham, one child in Leicestershire. They have different holidays, which makes it impossible at half term. So it actually takes that into consideration, which makes it easier, more flexible for parents.
I wonder what. Then again, but you've got teachers now. There's always what is it called? Teachers training days or something.
Inset days. Yes. Yeah.
If they're not striking.
Yeah, they're not. There's so many of them going on these inset days. What the children are doing on these inset days? What are they doing at home? Sitting on the phone or on the laptop and learning things that probably aren't conducive to them.
So,
So it's an argument for one thing and an argument for another.
Am I picking up from you, John, that you sense this is all part of our cultural change that's gone on here, which is, parents want to make life work for them and they want their kids to be able to do nice things, and these things that used to be luxuries back in the day are now expected. So people are angry that they have to pay a fine if they want to take their children out to go on a holiday. But what about the teachers that say,
exactly,
once you start to let that line go, you need to hold the line, because then it just sends the message that school doesn't matter that much. And once it starts to slide, you've lost that battle.
I think a week isn't considerable, really isn't. You can catch it up.
How many children in the class?
If you're ill off school just for 1 week or 2 weeks, for
how many children are in the
they're not
class?
behind.
So
the idea,
Andy's
Andy's idea was that you'd have to sort of apply, a bit like leave at work,
Yeah, well, that's
and
fair
then
enough.
only 2 children would be allowed to be off at any one time.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Does that work?
Fantastic, Andy.
However, it doesn't work in senior secondary school because you're all in different lessons. You've got a different set for maths, you've got a different set for DT. So, you can't really rota that kind of absence.
The parent has ultimate responsibility for the child, not the teachers.
Well, they ought to take it then.
Well, what about, finally, before we move on, the business of not going abroad on holiday? We talk about it like, again, it's like oxygen. Like, you should be able to take your children away on holiday to go abroad. It's unfair that the prices have gone up. Can we ever put that genie back in the bottle, though, John?
I hope so, because my children all went to different places. Every year we went to a different place in Britain. And we walked around, we stopped on a farmyard perhaps, and they had great holidays. Okay, some of their friends were over in Lanzarote and all that, but you've learned far more in a farmyard than you do in Lanzarote.
I think that, I'm going to leave it on that. You can quote him, John Holmes. I'm going to stay on the subject of parents and culture. The head teacher of Rugby School, it's a private school, he is saying that overprotective parenting is to blame for the anxiety levels in Gen Z, as we call them. So children that are born, oh goodness, I'm not quite sure of the cutoff, but the current generation of young people, they do say that anxiety levels are higher than ever and mental health is an issue for them. The head teacher in Rugby says, well, it's because of overprotective parenting. You're not allowing the children to go and do the things that is natural for a child, to explore, to test the boundaries, go out on your bicycle all day, come back when it gets dark. Instead, they're not letting them do that. Instead, they're banning them they are allowing them to do things perhaps they shouldn't, like be on their phones all day. He says phones are more dangerous. What do you make of that, Melita? Overprotective parenting, is it a problem?
It can be. I know times have changed. I mean, when I was a kid, I was allowed to go. I was in a different country then, because I came here when I was 11. But in Jamaica, my parents had my grandparents had their own farm, which I didn't realise, how free we were. But I'd get home from school and I could roam, do things. I could play with my friends. And same here when I came here. I could go out in the street and play with friends and talk. But now children, you're just locked away in your room. And I do understand the danger that's out there. But sometimes you have to let your children go a little bit.
Yeah.
Give them a little bit of freedom. Let them explore themselves. Let them speak to friends. Because now you've got kids or children. Some of them, they don't even know how to hold a conversation with somebody else. You speak to a child and they nod their head because they're not used to. They're on the phone all day. They're not interacting with anybody else.
About the person they're not able to answer the telephone.
Well, there was a course offered at
Unbelievable.
Nottingham College for young people who needed to get more confident in using a telephone, actually speaking on the phone. Yeah. We're talking, I'm told, about 13 to 28-year-olds.
Oh, right.
So that's Gen Z. And you're probably more in touch with them, given that you're a dad at the moment, kids at home. What do you think? I mean, can you understand the need to protect them from what we perceive as being all the dangers out there?
Yes, but it has gone too far. I sympathise with the teacher here from Rugby. I've been quite, liberal maybe with my eldest. I let him play out. I was kind of keen for him to be always outside. I remember when he was very young, I used to let him outside with the neighbours' kids and they stay out till dark. At the age of 5 and 6 years old, I could see where they are. They're just literally in between the gardens. But I thought it was important but I know that's a minority these days, especially with my current partner, 11-year-old. She's very protective, and I'm not used to that side of parenting. Let them out, go out on bikes, go to the park, but she's naturally worried because there is perhaps more today, more things to be worried about.
Ironically, now we should have more confidence perhaps letting them roam a bit because they have got a phone. You know, when I was out playing in the park, you know, I couldn't have my mum texting me saying, come back home in 5 minutes. You know, it was all done on trust and instinct, wasn't it?
I wonder if it's
But was that a good thing?
I wonder if it's added anxiety to the parent, because I know when we contact the child with the phone and they don't get back to us, there's an instant, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. We didn't have that back in the day.
True.
Yeah. Do you think there are more risks today than there were 30 years ago in the world, if you like, out there?
There are more risks, that's the problem. And the other problem is, of course, the media, us, we build it all up, we scare the living daylights out of people. We've got to reclaim the streets. This has been going on for a couple of decades now, reclaim the streets.
Okay. So,
It's
more
important.
police officers on the streets?
No.
10 seconds.
I don't know how, well, I'm just do
As
it.
a
But
community, perhaps do our best to
yes.
allow the kids to be out there without so much of a worry.
They need it.
Well, we will come back after a short break and we've got plenty more to talk about, like, is it time the council house had a clean-up in Nottingham's Market Square? Back in a moment. Welcome back to the Notts TV debate. I'm Frances Finn. Your three panellists this episode are Francois Loy, Melita Bryan and John Holmes. So my next question for you to have a think about is, would Nigel Farage be a good Prime Minister? Why am I asking? Well, a recent poll of the British public put for the first time reform above the Labour Party and the Conservatives, all the others. Now, they only have 5 MPs at the moment, but could they win the next general election? Certainly based on the polls at the moment, it would look like it. So what do you reckon? Nigel Farage for Prime Minister, John Holmes?
No, rubbish. Elon Musk is right. The man is two-dimensional. He's a good facade. I mean, and there's lots of talent in reform, I'm sure there is. But Nigel Farage is not the leader for Prime Minister. He's a good sort of figure, because the public now took everybody. It's too much personality thing in politics. You have to be a personality, and I think Farage is a very good personality, but he's just two-dimensional. That's my opinion.
Francois, now we know that you have a history in politics, wanting independence for the UK away from the European Union. He's your hero, isn't he?
I spent many years working with Nigel Farage, and I'm delighted at the demise of Labour and Conservative and the new party taking centre stage.
I think demise is a bit strong at this point. The
I'm
Labour
looking
Party
at
is
the
running
polls.
the country.
It's one way. It's going one way at the moment.
Demise is too strong, but I take your point.
But with Nigel Farage be a good Prime Minister, well, he'll be potentially the best Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher, I would say. Better than the current, better than the incumbent and the previous ones. How effective would be a Prime Minister? All he has to do, and I share this with Keir Starmer, just do as you say, and then you can't go wrong. As long as you're congruent, stick to your pledges, whether people agree or disagree with you, at least you'll be in a good Prime Minister. And he has that potential.
But that's wrong in politics, I think. It's about time MPs thought for themselves. But anyway, that's another thing.
Melissa,
God,
what do you think?
so
What do you
sorry.
think? I mean, you are a Labour, Labour member, Labour councillor, Labour Lord Mayor of recent times.
Yeah.
How do you feel looking at this, that your party in government is now coming second place to the likes, I say the likes of Nigel Farage, because they do only have 5 MPs?
Yeah. Well, not very good, not very well. Nigel Farage policy is immigration. And while I do understand, the language is what these MPs or politicians are using about immigration, it needs to be clear. Because I'm an immigrant. I've been in this country for 60 years. And I've worked since I was 15. I'm a black person. And if you're going to talk about immigration, or you're going to talk about the people who have been in this country for a very long time, contributed to the country, if somebody looks at me, they're not going to think, oh, she's an immigrant, she's been here 60 years. She's contributed to the economy of this year. All they're going to see is a black person. They don't know how long I've been in this country.
So
those
that's
are the
interesting. So your worry
yeah.
is, although there might be a case, I don't know whether you think there is a case or not, to try to bring down immigration numbers, once you make it a hot issue, it's a divisive
yes,
narrative.
very much so. Very much so. It is very divisive because my children are born in this country.
Yeah.
My eldest daughter is 54 years old. And if somebody look at her, she's a black girl. Nobody's not going to know that she's just stepped off the plane last week.
Do you not think, I mean, there are some Labour MPs that are really wanting to meet with Keir Starmer at the moment to say you need to shout louder about bringing immigration down. These are Labour MPs.
Yes.
And they're saying, because if you don't, that's a vacuum.
Of
and
course.
in that
It's gonna
vacuum,
lose them
other
all.
people are going to rush in. And that's exactly, perhaps, what Nigel Farage sees and is using as his vote winner.
Yes, and he's not making it clear when he talks about immigration. He's, immigration, but he's not making it clear what he means about immigration.
Let me dispel some of the fears for you, because I'm from that side, and I understand, as a second-generation immigrant myself, I understand the concerns. It's illegal immigration they want to go after, not legal migration.
No, I don't think that's true at all.
No, it's not.
That is not
It's
true.
not true.
Because, well, let me just give you the figures.
not
I think even the Labour Party says that the immigration figures have been too high since Brexit. In the year ending June 2024, 1.2 million people came to the UK, just under 500,000 left, leaving a net figure of 728,000. Now, that is down on the peak in 2023 of 900,000, but in 97, when Labour came into power, the net migration was 55,000, and that's when we were in the European Union.
It was very manageable back then, wasn't it? And the problem is when we've gone to the hundreds of thousands to nearly a million migrants, our services and infrastructure cannot cope with that number.
Right.
It's just a numbers game. It's not about people who are here, let's kick everybody out now. It's let's manage legal migration.
It's all right saying it like that. But when you're out there spurring it out about immigration, you're not making it quite clear what you mean. Immigration have served this country for a very long time and continue to serve this country. And I can tell you, this is just my opinion. You're saying we're not going to kick them all out. But if you get somebody like Nigel Farage come in and start to spewing out these things, and he decide to make his policies and said, well, this is what we're going to do to get it done. So this country will be at a standstill.
Could I clarify where the panel stands then on all of this? So Nigel Farage, no from John, yes from you, and obviously a no from you, Melita. But on the topic of immigration, do you think that he is speaking for a majority in the country on the sense that the immigration is too high?
Yes, it is. It's always been said, especially through the Brexit debates, that immigration is a net positive to the economy. We've seen that not to be true now with the latest figures. So it just needs to be brought into balance. And I think we've tried it one way. Let's just be reasonable with our borders and let's have a manageable level. So people don't miss out on doctors' places, dentists' places, and employment and housing. 3,000 houses, how many a day? 900 houses have to be built a day to meet the current Labour target. It's impossible.
But then, as Melita has said, so many of our industries rely heavily on immigration, and we have such an ageing population, don't we? I think within a few years we'll have 1 in 3 pensioners to workers. It used to be...
Well, can we remember back to the 90s when unemployment was really low and was desperate for workers? That's a good place to be when you need all these extra workers.
But it's still desperate. I was talking to a lady, a teacher not so long ago, just a few days ago, and this country is still bringing teachers in from other countries because they haven't got enough of the people that they want in this country to do the work that they want to do. So it's the same as nursing.
Train, isn't it, as well?
Well, it's if there's the people in the country, they're saying they need to train people. How many years does it take to train a teacher? How many years does it take to train a doctor?
Okay.
How many years does it take to train a nurse? So they're still bringing people in. So who are these people? I understand that people are coming in illegal, and I do understand that. But if you're going to talk about immigration, talk about it in the context that it's overrunning the country, and make it clear because people don't understand A lot of people does not understand when they say immigration. They see everybody as immigration.
It's a soundbite, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so Melita, thank you for
Please
that.
speak clear and
Can I just
concise.
come in
Yeah.
and just move us on a little bit? And last week it was 5 years since Brexit, since we left the European Union. And part of this question around Nigel Farage, he and his allies say that Brexit could be working brilliantly if it was left to him. But the Conservative government made a complete hash of it, and that's why we are not seeing any of the promises that the Leave campaign pledged come to fruition. Have you changed your mind on Brexit?
No, it was right to vote for it. We've not had Brexit in how it was supposed to be. I'm very disappointed in the Conservative government. Very disappointed. They had the baton and let it drop.
Is that not just because it was a very bad idea?
No, not at all.
It was an unachievable.
Potentially, no. There's no political will, and what we've seen is a backlash from the electorate. Hence, they're dropping their support for Conservatives and Labour and giving it to a party like Reform because people want to believe in this country and its independence. I believe they know it can go on to do good things. We've been let down by a political class.
Just your reflections on Brexit before the break.
Well, I wish we were still in Europe, but Europe under our terms. They were trying to run too many things. We should have, we had enough power to say, hands off, we'll do our own legal thing, thank you. But we want to have a common market. That's what it was meant to be, a common market. Absolutely. When it was like that, I vote for staying in Europe.
I mean, actually, it's changed a little with Donald Trump saying that he wants to place a tariff on the EU. Maybe it's, on that basis alone, we've dodged a bullet there by coming out because we won't face as heavy a tariff as the EU, Melita.
Probably,
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just finally on this, some are saying, some that like Donald Trump in office, he is someone who is a strong leader. He has radical views. He's not afraid to say what he thinks, and he is already delivering on some of those things that he has said. Nigel Farage, you could say, we don't know, he's never been in any sort of power, but he is at least someone that talks the talk. Do you think it's time that we had someone a bit more like Trump to get things done?
I would love it if Trump was in charge of over here. Someone like Trump, I suppose Nigel Farage is the closest thing we have, or an Elon Musk. I think it's great. Imagine that, a politician who actually does what they say. Amazing.
Elon Musk?
Oh, he's
a
doing all right.
politician?
No, he's that Doge department. We need a UK version of the Doge department.
He's not a fan of Nigel
COVID, I've been
Farage.
drinking bleach. I've been listening to Donald Trump.
We haven't got time really to cover all the bases with Donald Trump and what's been happening there. I mean, it is quite something, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, but as we've said, he's a man of conviction, and some are saying
He
that
should be convicted.
conviction is what is missing at the moment
He's
from
done a lot
some
for
of
women's
our.
rights this week.
Yeah.
For who?
Women's rights. He signed that new executive order.
Has he? Well, don't go away, because as promised, we will be talking about the Nottingham issue of the council house and whether it needs a bit of a spruce up and can we afford it, and also homelessness in Nottingham. Should those that have been violent within shelters in our city be offered shelter at all in future? Plenty more as well. Don't go away. This is the Notts TV debate. I'm Frances Finn. Back in a minute. It's the Notts TV debate with three Nottinghamshire panellists, Francois Loy, Melita Bryan and John Holmes. I'm Frances Finn, and time to talk about the council house in Nottingham, our iconic Market Square building with the two lions at the front. Do you think it's looking a bit sad? Some say that the condition of it is depressing and in need of cleaning and repair. However, the leadership of the council says times are tough. There is not enough money to be spending on luxuries like that. I'm using my words there. They say they can't afford to do the repairs that are needed. Now, it's not just cleaning it up. It's things like leaky roofs, some of the stonework. The total bill could come in at an eye-watering £2.8 million, which is a lot for the City Council to be finding right now. What do you think? I mean, Melita, you'll have gone into that council house a bazillion times. Do you think it's looking a bit sad, and does it even matter?
It does matter. When I was a councillor and when I was part of the Civic, I did try, and I did raise the question of getting it cleaned up, and not just me, a few of the council and a few of the past civic have voiced concern about getting it cleaned up. I mean, it's one of our biggest iconic building in this city. So, you know, when you walk in, it should be nice and clean. And, you know, I know it's probably going to cost a lot of money, but you haven't got to do it all at once. You can do it bit by bit. You can do the bits that are showing, get those cleaned up, so that because we're talking about getting visitors into our city. And if somebody walking and says, "Oh, that's the council house," and I say, "Oh, it's a bit depressing looking." So we want to show Nottingham off at its best. And if the council house is one of the first things we're going to show off at its best, I feel that some money should be spent on it to clean it up.
Well, here's an interesting fact. The last time it was cleaned, 50 years ago. Even my house has been cleaned more recently than 50 years ago. I think we're talking about the externals, obviously. The lions as well. There's a sort of picture I've got here showing that the lion, compared to when it was given a bit of a buff up, it is looking very grey and drab. But £2.8 million, John, can we afford it?
We need to look after the actual building. We can't have leaking roofs, we can't have faulty stonework. That is absolutely essential. That building is so important to our city. It's a shame it's masked by all these fun fairs and things, which you can't see it. But that's so important to our city. But the cosmetic side, well, let's look, you know, we've got to cut our cloth according to our means.
Yes. And it's a good point about the fabric of the building, because it's like all buildings, once they start to go, it's very hard to bring them back, and the cost starts to spiral,
Absolutely.
doesn't it? Maybe now is the time. Now is always the time to tackle a faulty building.
It's just another example how they're not very good at running their own budgets. I mean, any type of business which owns buildings must have facility and management looks after the aesthetics of the building, and it is vital for the city that centrepiece is looking its best. It's just another example of them mismanaging their budgets. They waste money all over the place.
Well, obviously the Labour Council has had its finances scrutinised and has had some intervention from the government. However, they do reassure us that they're doing everything possible to make every penny count. And that is why it's saying it can't justify £2.8 million on the council house at the moment.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money to be spent on other services, you could say, Melissa.
Understandably, but, you know, like I says, you know, are you going to let your house fall down around you where you live in? And this is like, this is an iconic building for the city. So, you know, like John say, you know, the bit that needs doing needs to be done.
Yeah.
How
about they do a Nottinghamshire County Council? Perhaps they could sell this amazing building to some kind of hotelier or some other interested business, and go somewhere cheaper that is going to have fewer maintenance costs.
Would the council don't meet there anymore, do they? This is already strong.
There are some offices in there, aren't there?
Oh, ceremonies. I saw you made mayor there.
Do we need it as a civic building?
It's iconic, it has to be.
It's exactly.
But it can still be iconic.
Well, it wouldn't be if it become a hotel or something like that. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same ring for the city.
Where will the Forest players go up and hold their European Cup?
Exactly, and you know, we need that. We need something in the city that belongs to us and the city centre. And it doesn't belong to. When I was there, a lot of people did not realise that centre belonged to them. It belongs to the public. You can go in, you can go and have a look. And a lot of people came in and they says, "Oh, I didn't know I could come in here." I said, "Of course I can." They thought it was only for if you're going to have events there, you know, or just for the civic.
You can get married in there, can't you?
It's for the public. You know, it belongs to the public.
Yes.
It's an important building.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying we should spend some money on it, and the council should do its best to find the coffers. Perhaps we should all do a crowdfunding. We could all chip in.
Yeah.
Do you think people would do that? A quid each? Mind you, that wouldn't go anywhere near covering it, would it? Maybe a £5 each, and we could have it brought back to its former glory, as they say.
We'll just take the footballers' wages.
Well, the cost of parking in this city is so expensive. I'm surprised they can't find them.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Don't even start me on that.
I'll move us on. I would love to talk now about a problem that Bassett Law Council is facing. Homelessness, of course, is something that bothers us all. No one wants to see anyone out on the streets in the cold winter months. But what if the person that's being offered shelter in one of many shelters, actually, that we have in the county, what if they are violent? What if they are causing trouble for the other residents and they are moved on? Should they be offered shelter regardless? Tricky one. What are you thinking, Melita, as someone who's had to have these presumably conversations in the past?
Yeah, it is a tricky one. But at the end of the day, we all need somewhere to live. And there's so many complex issues that people are dealing with these days. It's very difficult to know what's going through that person's mind. We don't know what they're dealing with. And yes, they shouldn't be causing problems for other people, but they still need somewhere to live.
The council, it's Worksop in particular that is struggling with this at the moment and saying that they try to find certain people accommodation. They then start breaking rules, taking drugs, they get moved on, and then the final option they are left with is somewhere like a travel lodge to house them. And they say, well, is it fair on residents in a paying hotel to have someone next to them that might be creating some difficulty? Any solutions welcome?
Well, there's a couple of problems identified here. It's the homelessness, but obviously this is clearly a mental health issue as well. Yeah. So not only are we trying to find somewhere for them to stay or be sheltered, but we need to address the root cause. And mental health issues seems to me there's a lack of investment. There's a lack of, I still think, of understanding. It's getting better about mental health, but there needs to be some more effort in that area, maybe from the county council, where we invest in that area to give the people the help they need.
Well, certainly homelessness is on the rise again, isn't it?
It is, and it's heartbreaking, when you walk on the street and see people sleeping on the side or eating out of a bin.
If someone's being violent, they need medical help.
Yeah.
There's a mental health issue. I mean, I understand why we lost places like Mapley Hospital, which is now Duncan Millen House, which school's been everywhere. But I understand why we lost Mapley Hospital. But actually, those people were being sheltered. They were being looked after. And they're not being looked after now. They're just shoved out on the streets.
Being a victim of the violence as well. So it actually helped in a different way. Yeah.
Well, a question of perhaps less seriousness to take us up to the break. And did you see in the news that lab-grown meat is a thing? They began to say that technology was leading us down a food production route with things like burgers, that you could have meat without any animal having been involved in terms of, farming an animal. That technology is still ongoing. But what they have done is developed pet food. So a pet food manufacturer is now selling food for dogs which has been lab grown. Don't ask me about the science of it. It's something to do with they've got a cell and they've done stuff to it and suddenly they've got this meat. But it's not come from a fertilised egg, a lady and a boy animal. It's not come from that. Would you eat lab-grown meat, Francois?
No, keep the Frankenstein food away from the plate and from the animals. It's not good. Processed, I think we're aware that processed food is bad for us in general. This is ultra-processed food. No, stay away.
Well, define ultra-processed in a way, because actually this is a way of developing food that you could say has much lower impact on the environment. So you're not having to graze cattle. You've not got all that slaughtering, the animal rights issues.
Well. No animals were harmed in this.
No animals harmed.
Yeah. It has to be organic as possible food. It really has.
The cells have been taken. Now this is expert in my ear. One chicken egg apparently to make this chickeny food. Chickeny food or chicken, choose. So Melita, how do you feel about it? Could be the future for us all.
Oh God, not very good. The trouble is we don't know what we're eating at the moment because there's so many things that's out there, and you get so many, at times you hear things in the news and it makes you cringe. And when you hear these things, you talk about Frankenstein food, we just don't know where we're going to go next.
What's the long-term effects of it?
God, I'd hate to think that I'm eating something that I don't know where it's come from and how it's been made.
But you will know exactly where it's come from. It's come from a lab down the road, in whatever industrial park.
Is this Bill Gates again?
No, it's not. Are you fine with it, John? Is this just embrace the change?
If I knew it was safe, I would do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I've gone off meat, to be honest with you. I find it boring. But you get to a certain age, you go, not this again. But no, if I knew it was safe. It's either like vaping. You know, I mean, that's been abused unbelievably. We don't know if it's safe. We really do not. It may be safer than tobacco. Give me a good fag any day, if you ask me. But anyway, back on the food.
But you're worried about safety. Yes. Well, clearly they've deemed this food fit to be given to our pets. We love our pets. And you know, it could be the solution to food sustainability. At the moment, it's a cost thing. It's costing a lot to produce human consumption lab-made meat.
I don't see the problem with sustainability. Problems when we're not using the farmers' fields effectively. Farmers are getting such a hard, rough time at the moment. We can see that from the protests. Now, keep food as natural as possible. That's how it's meant to be.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll come back after a short break here on the Notts TV debate. Bye for now. Welcome back to the final part of the Notts TV debate with me, Frances Finn, and Francois Loy, Melissa Bryan and John Holmes. Now to the subject of Nottingham's mental health services and the terrible case of the 3 victims of Valdo Calocane. My question, should the Nottingham health boss resign after all of this? So just to remind you what happened, Valdo Calocane killed 3 people. He was not forced to take his antipsychotic medication, in part because he didn't like needles, a major review of the NHS has revealed. Now, this has all been published in a report into what went on and what went wrong, and it concluded that the system got it wrong, with Calocane stabbing Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates. This was in June 2023. So it laid out how Calocane, who was a paranoid schizophrenic, had had no contact with mental health services or his GP for about 9 months prior to the killings. And there are many more details to this case. It's absolutely horrific. We can't imagine what the families are going through still. But the chief executive of the Healthcare Trust, Ifti Majid, is saying he's not resigning over this, but they are very much taking on board the conclusions of the report. He says, we are making clear progress with a trust-wide plan, which is already delivering key improvements in areas such as risk assessment and the discharge process. Is that enough? Are you confident that lessons are going to be learned and taken forward? John, what's your gut instinct on this?
They always say that, don't they? The thing is that mental health has been underfunded all my life. It's always, when I was a child, it was called the Cinderella of mental health, of health service. Excuse me. And that's been the problem. There was a reason for getting rid of places like Mapley Hospital, because people were becoming institutionalised, and they deserve to be living out in the community. But a lot of them need to be institutionalised. They need to be looked after better. This guy, I mean, he had huge mental health problems. There wasn't enough staff to actually police him.
And he failed to engage, that was the thing.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is, in those instances, you need to take action for their own protection and the protection of the safety.
Yes.
And we know that didn't happen, of the public rather. But lessons are being learned. Is that enough?
No, not at all.
No, certainly not.
The safeguarding issues, they says the risk assessments, the new risk assessments, there were previous risk assessments, and whoever had those, who put those safeguarding plans, safe systems of work and risk assessment in place, their head needs to fall, because that's what they get paid to be responsible for. So there needs to be some sort of responsibility and accountability held. And if he's the top of the tree, his head needs to fall with it. And for too long do we see people getting away with it by, we're learning from our mistakes. Yeah. No, this is a catastrophic error and heads need to roll.
And he's paid enough.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I do remember not long ago I interviewed the boss of 2 hospitals, not in Nottinghamshire, and she is paid £232,000 a year, and I challenged her over the size of that salary, and her defence was that she has a very responsible job, and when things go wrong she could end up being sent to prison. So therefore that salary can be justified in her mind. What more could go wrong than this? So, I mean, we're talking about whether or not he should resign. I mean, some are saying, it's an even bigger issue than that.
Yeah. She says, well, this person said that they paid a lot of money in case it goes wrong, that they'll go to prison. Are they taking their responsibility seriously? If they were taking it seriously enough, we talk about, what John just said and what you've just said. Now, you can't just sit there and say, well, I get paid a lot of money, I'm hoping that thing doesn't go wrong, then I won't go to jail. It needs to be taken seriously. All of these organisations need to speak to each other. I mean, this guy doesn't like needles, like a lot of us doesn't like needles. And like you said, John, there probably should be a place, if he's not going to take his medication himself, there should be somewhere that's responsible to make sure he takes his medication, whether it's by needle or tablets or whatever. You can't be let out in the community as such a dangerous person and leave it to your own devices, because it's not going to work. And she should, wherever this person...
So the example I gave is not Nottinghamshire. So I'm just using as an example. You could say, yes, you get paid a lot because the responsibility is great. And so when the system fails, it might not be directly a personal decision by the person at the top, but I think it's kind of agreed, as you were saying, that in the end the buck has to stop somewhere. I don't know though, I mean, no amount of resignations would ever truly...
Sorry, I didn't mean resignation. They should be taken to a tribunal and disciplined for their catastrophic failures, not resign. You shouldn't have an opportunity to resign.
And can I just add to that, like you said, I know they always say that these persons should resign, but if that person resigns and somebody else comes in, is it going to make a difference? But like you said, they should be held to account for the jobs, for the position that they hold, to make sure that the person down the line is doing what they're supposed to be doing, because that's why they get paid so much money.
That'll have a knock-on effect, because the successor would then know, well, best not make these failures again, because there is a repercussion for failure.
We'll move on. And there has been a new statue set up in the green space by the Broad Marsh, where that new development is going to be. And the statue is to acknowledge the involvement of immigrants, of black enslaved workers, women that helped with the textiles industry here in the East Midlands. And so the statue is of a black worker and a white woman. And it's called Standing in This Place. It's actually really good. I'm really impressed with the workmanship that's gone on. So that's always a good thing, isn't it? Because you never know when they unveil these sculptures. No. There have been some horror stories over the last few years. But it's a beautiful piece of work. So, I mean, just first, your reflections on that. I mean, Melita, you talked earlier on about you being an immigrant. And now we are learning that we need to acknowledge and pay tribute to what has happened. We're not rewriting history, but we're trying to put some of those wrongs right. Does it make you feel good?
It certainly does. I'm so proud of it, and the fact that I know the lady, Louise Garvey, the lady whose statues was representing that. I think, and it goes back to when I'm talking about immigrants, and these are the things that immigration or people from other countries have done and made contribution. It's good to see that there's a statue that's been showed of somebody, or that era of people have made to this country the contribution. Because a lot of people don't see it like that. And if you can walk in town, I mean, probably our grandchildren, my grandchildren, I can, I'll go back a bit. We talk about, when we talk about the war, because I went to see the statue yesterday, and it's amazing. And this conversation among people was talking, and somebody was saying, when we talked about the World War and black people being in the war, and the younger generation, like my grandkids or great-grandkids, says, what's it got to do with us? It's got nothing to do with this. Well, these are things that need to be taught and to learn. That
so this is a good step.
It's a good stuff, yes.
Well, I just wonder then, with statues, we don't have many new statues. Every few years, the next one, do you want to chuck some names into the hat, into the ring, whatever the phrase is?
Local legends?
Yeah.
Wow, it's good.
You're not allowed Nigel Farage.
Yeah. No, he's not local.
Do you have to be dead?
No?
No, good. Right.
Yeah.
It was great that they had the Brian Clough statue. I mean, have we got a taller than D one yet? We should have. We should have.
We've got things named after them, haven't we? We've got roads. We've got Bolero Square.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you maybe have a statue of those two.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that'd be
Why
nice.
not?
Yeah. I mean, this is John, you'll know, we've talked about this many times over the years, haven't we? Who's next after Brian Clough had his statue? But who would you put your vote with?
Just on the subject of good statues, that one of Jack Wheeler and Jimmy Cyril outside the Notts County Ground is magic.
On Meadow Lane, yeah.
Paul Smith.
Oh.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Have they named a tram after him yet? Because it took them ages.
I think they have, haven't they? Yeah.
It happened recently. I used to phone them up and say, why isn't there a tram after Paul Smith? Oh, we haven't got any more trams left. He doesn't want to be. I said, I was talking to Paul last week and he wanted it.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh. Right. Well, if not a tram, let's have a statue. Any ideas, Melita?
Me?
Yes! You!
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, why not?
I've done my bit for Nottingham.
You are. We've just got a couple of minutes left, and I just want to mention a Nottinghamshire campaign. And this is a campaign for a smartphone-free childhood. Some ladies have set up a group, there's a website, 500 members of it now. Ban smartphones for under 16s. Do you back this local campaign?
I don't see how it can happen. I mean, I understand the principles behind it, and I think it's a good effort. I think 16's probably too high. I mean, I've got a niece, 13 years old. You try and get her smartphone off her. You won't have your arm left over. It would be almost impossible.
Well, that's the point,
Almost
though,
impossible.
isn't it? That is the point.
Potentially. I do think at a younger age, like primary school, definitely. Senior school, I think they're starting to, as they go through teenagehood into adulthood, perhaps that's a good time. But I understand the reason behind it.
Melita, is 16 too old then to have that cut off?
Yeah, because 16, I mean, the child leaves school at 16 now, doesn't they? So,
No, well, it's got to be 18.
18, yeah.
Or unless they're in work training.
I think I tend to agree with you. It's a younger child, but you know, the gene is out of the bag now. It's going to be very difficult. It's not going to work. It's gone too far now. How are you going to get your phone off these children unless new babies that's
But
been
if it was
born?
made law, I mean, they are considering it in
You know.
Australia, aren't they? And even
Yeah.
Bill Gates was talking the other day,
yeah.
saying he thinks it might be a good idea. If everyone went with it and we all, worked together, perhaps we could free our kids of all the apps and all the WhatsApps pinging all night long.
Yeah, get them speaking to each other again, going
Because
out
they don't
the
like
front
talking
door.
on the phone, do they?
No.
We are led to believe, yes, as we were saying earlier on.
Horses bolted, unfortunately. But the thing that worries me is not the actual educational side and the social side, fine. But it worries me about the bullying.
That's
Yes,
it.
When I was bullied
absolutely.
at school, it stopped when I left school.
Thank you, John. On that note, we are going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our panellists, to Francois Loy, Melita Bryan and John Holmes. I'm Frances Finn, and you can catch up on this programme online. Just Google Notts TV Debate and you'll find us. Meanwhile, we'll speak to you next time. Bye-bye.